Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we delve into the mind shaping the future of business and leadership. Today, we have the privilege of conversing with Luciana Fistarol, an entrepreneur whose journey has been anything but conventional. Her upcoming book, From Small Town to Big Dreams, which caught me right away because I love that title. From humble beginnings in a small Brazilian town to empowering growth worldwide as a performance coach and corporate speaker, her story is a testament to the power of perseverance, adaptability, and visionary leadership. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Ron. So glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're here because I wanted to really explore, your career because, when you talk about the digital nomad. So
Yes.
walk us through your career journey as to how did you start from a small town in Brazil to where you are today?
Yes, sure. So everything started in a town called Apiúna. It's a town of 5,000 people in Brazil.
Okay.
Very, very small town. I left my town when I was 17 years old to go to university because really there was no university near to my town. I studied there. Then I worked with events industry for like about 8 years. I was really in a high position working for a very big company, the biggest one in south of Brazil. But something was calling me. I really wanted to experiment the other countries. So I decided to quit. I already had like a little experience when I went to United States for frying potatoes, really like was a small work experience. And I loved this cultural shock that I had and I wanted more. So I decided to quit. I had nothing really in my mind. But then I always say, like, people are watching you, even if you don't notice. So people were watching me in my role in this media company. And when I decided to quit, I received an offer from a Brazilian company to work for them in China. So I was like, that's perfect. So I went to China. I started small again. So my career really, really started. It's always the same. I always start in a low position, work hard, then scale up. So in 1 year, I was just like scaling up. I was being the legal representative in Asia, opening new markets for them. But I was already 3 years in China, and I was like, I want to go to an English-speaking country now to really improve my English because my English is getting worse here in China. So I went to Australia. I started working with events again. Worked there for 3 years. Worked for a business coach who I say that the universe bring him to my life because he opened my mind that I could build a business for myself. And I always love traveling and get to know new countries. So I really wanted to have this nomadic lifestyle. So I decided to quit once again. I started my own business, selling products on Amazon. I did not go so well. So I started serving business that sells on Amazon. And that went absolutely great until the point then I am now, which I still work for the company. I have society. So I have like some stocks in this company nowadays. But also on the side, then I start doing coaching and performance coaching for the business and being a corporate speaker, more in this remote leadership. This new world that we are coming in, that's like a really remote workers, right? Like, so how to manage this remote work environment. So in a nutshell, I hope like I answer your question.
Yeah,
But
you
that was
did. No, go ahead. No, what I'm saying, you did. I mean, walking us through that. But here's what I found interesting in your story. You said I had a calling because I knew there was something more. And I think
yeah.
lots of people today, they're in jobs, they hate every minute of it, and they're just going through the motions. They want to do something because I talked with a client last week, and she says, I want to do this. I said, you told me this 3 years ago. The same story. So what has happened since that time?
Yes, no, I love that you pointed that because I always say to everyone that if I am where I am, is for making decisions to change. And I
Okay.
found it very important to touch base about that because people normally, we have this culture where we are like, we have to decide what we want to do in our lives when we are so young,
Yeah.
right? And what do we know about life at that age, right? And then what happens often is people arrive in this job, and then maybe it happens what happened to me all the time, that you grow in a certain position where for everybody else you are on the highest possible position, right? You gain a good salary, you have
Yeah.
like the high title, but
Yeah.
you are not your title. And then people get scared to change, right? Get scared to change. So I always say, like, my pivotal moments in my life was always the when I made the decision to know that that position was not satisfying me more.
Hmm.
And like the most magical thing happens is when you make a decision for this change, you open up doors for opportunities. So
Hmm.
every time in my career journey, I was always in the highest level. Was the highest level in Brazil, was the highest level in China, was the highest level in Australia. And I always decided to change it for something more and
Yeah.
bring me to even higher status, you know? So it's like the decision of change, it's hard to make. I'm not saying that's easy,
Yeah.
but it's imperative.
Yeah. I've quit a job in my past, and I said I'm not going to do it anymore. And I didn't have a job, but I said I know one thing: I don't want to do that anymore.
There
So
we go.
I'm really amazed by you have made all those changes. So when you talk about the digital nomad, you were here. I could have stayed here and stayed there for 25 years and got a watch for retirement or whatever it was. But you said no, there's more.
Yes, yes. And there's always more. There's always more. The world are full of opportunities. If you're not enjoying what you do, like you have so much opportunity to change.
So the situation that you were in China and you
Yes,
had worked your way up to that higher level,
yes.
in each one of these positions you had worked your way up to the higher level. When did it become apparent to you that, you know what, maybe let me switch it and maybe start advising other companies or other people, because you talked about the influence of a coaching in your life?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
did that?
So first of all, like inside the companies, like all I did do really was acting responsible, right? So in every company that I worked for, I was hired to do a certain thing and I was doing more. So
Yeah.
every time that they asked me to do A, I would do A plus B or A in a A plus type of thing, like to show like the difference that we could make. And then I started noticing this pattern on my own life, right? I started noticing that's like I am not smarter than anybody. All
Yeah.
I'm doing is just bringing a certain plus, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's considering things to do that people didn't ask me. That's connect to what people ask me to do. So I started seeing this whole pattern, and I started to realize for myself, and even asking the CEOs, the company that I work for, was what is that shines that you like me to put in these highest positions? And that's what they told me. It's like it's just the attitude that you make. And then for me, it was just imperative to teach it to people. So I really started to go to the lower level because, and you see, like as a digital nomad myself now, I meet a lot of people who has the same lifestyle as me. And then all of us have in common that we love to travel, right? We love to travel, we love to explore places. And I'm a particular one because I like to explore places in style. I like to stay in nice places. I want to visit any country that I want. I am in Italy right now, so Europe is not the most affordable country, and most of people are just going to Thailand, Vietnam. And then my coaching career really started with the digital nomads, like to show them that the activity that they do is important for the company, and if they act just a little plus more, they can gain confidence to ask for more money, to
Okay.
then start continue living an even better life. You
Uh-huh.
see, so like I started my coaching career really in the down level, let's say, of the operational level of a company, to
Okay.
tell them like, hey, just act more responsibly, be more proactive, and then you can grow in a company. And then I merged to go to coach CEOs to also give opportunity for the people and give them space, right, to grow and to bring solutions to the company.
Mm. Lots of workers,
Yes.
and you know them as well as I, they get on the job and they do, the job description says ABC. They do ABC. One of the key points that you talked about was you expanded in each one of the roles you had beyond that ABC. I can do
Perfect.
ABC, but I can also do DEF. And I
Yes.
keep expanding each role. Give us a little more insight on that expansion of the job that we do every day.
Yeah, sure. So I will give you some practical examples, let's say, okay? So for example, for a design team, right? Like sometimes like the person who is doing design briefing, it says, oh, I want a heart color blue in a yellow background. Okay, do what they ask it for. But you as a designer, you are the creative person. And maybe you visualize that maybe a pink heart instead of blue heart is gonna make it better. So
Yeah.
you're gonna show both solutions, right? You're gonna show both. Look, I did what you asked it for, but I also bring it to the table what I think is the best. So same for like financials, right? Like, so I always had like the financial analysis on my side, and I know kind of what I want to look at, but I always give them space. You can show this in a different way or in a different perspective, right? So it's like, it's really bringing to the table, what do you think? Because so many people sometimes like they complain about their bosses, like, oh, they ask me to do this in this way, but I really feel that this is not the right way.
Yeah.
Perfect. Then show them like what's the way that you wanted to do. Give them what they want, but also give them like what's your alternative, right?
Mhm.
Give them the alternative besides they asking you. Just bring it to the table, and then they will impress for your proactiveness there, and they more than often will accept your suggestion.
Yeah. That's so powerful. Because I had a client this week and they're trying to find another job and they're just talking through the. I said, you have to sell yourself. So she told me, I said, how did the interview go? She said, it went well. I answered all their questions. I said, what is that as a response? Answered all their questions. Did you
Yeah.
sell you
Yeah.
beyond this answering all their questions? But so I'm saying that to set up this question to you. A lot of workers are just going through the motions.
Sure.
How can, if you were talking to CEOs, or how can we create a culture in an organization to say, let's explore, let's all explore?
Yes. Yeah. So what I always teach people is about number one, the communication. You always need to everyone to understand that they are a bigger piece of a larger puzzle, right?
Yeah.
So everybody makes a difference. So when you task somebody to do something about a project, always important to mention on the why, right? On the why.
Uh,
So giving a very low example again, like bring it to design, for example, if I'm doing an international expansion, right, and a certain product, which is my role now, like I do international expansion for haircare products for a certain company. I won't go to the design team and say, hey, change this packaging for this color and this copywriting. No, I inform the why. We are expanding markets. It's important for us. For the new market, we have to follow certain rules. And therefore, I need you to do blah. So I formed the why I'm asking the question. I formed the what I need to be done. But the how they will do it, I will leave open to them. So for example, an inventory department, we needed to create a EPR system, right? Why? We are expanding. We have more marketplaces. We have more logistics to be operated. What I want something that can operate faster. How? I leave that to you.
oh,
Because then people can bring the creativity on them on their own.
yeah. And I think when you do that, because a lot of workers want to do that, but they
Yes.
don't feel comfortable in suggesting another vision because the CEO, marketing director, whoever it is, said this is the way we need to do it. We need to follow the guidelines, and you feel structured in that space, and you just stay there.
Yeah, but you know what? And then you are not bringing growth to your company. So that's what I try to make the CEOs and the management team really think about. Like you are hiring someone who, in theory, are bringing solutions for you. And that's how I, as I say, I'm the one, I don't know how to do nothing. What I do is I bring specialists that
Yeah,
tell me how
yeah.
to do things. So why would I hire a marketing director and tell them do this, right? When I should hire them and say, like, what do you think we should do? Bring to the table your ideas. It's constructing together, right? It's constructing that the company will grow. If you just say like exactly what to do, then guess what? You all you are doing is just managing people works. Instead, you bringing new ideas to the table. As a CEO or as a high leader, you really have to have your mind open and free to create new solutions and then let the team operate for you.
I had a call this morning with a future chief marketing officer, and we
Yes.
discussed the exact same thing and the frustrations that this person was having inside of the organization. But this was sometimes it's the culture inside.
Yes.
And So when you say you talk and got you guide CEOs through that, I think it has to come from on high. So I'll give you an example of that. There was an interview on CNBC years ago, and I remember sitting there watching, and they asked a couple of CEOs, "How many people do you have working in R&D?" And one gentleman said, "I think we have maybe 5 or 6 in that department." The other one said 1,200. So how could
Wow.
you 1,200 people in R&D? He says, we created a culture that everyone is in R&D. If you're sweeping the floors, you're in R&D. If you can find a better way to do, and I'm thinking, powerful, the skies open up. Imagine creating or working in a company that said, let's just try everything. And you create a culture of managers to say, let's just sit back and listen. We hired people that are experts and we let them give us the ideas.
Yes, that's it. And another thing that you mentioned now that's really important is always this cross departments functions, right? Because there are talents in our teams that are hidden. So sometimes I just give an example. Right now, we have in a company, our financial analyst, he has brilliant ideas in social media. You know, he has a brilliant ideas on what to do on social media. Yes, there is not in his department, but then the expertise can listen to those ideas and bring their expertise and build something beautiful together.
Yeah.
So you mentioned R&D, like in our company, we also like make everyone bring ideas because you are a consumer, you are consuming products. So maybe someone that's doing logistics having a brilliant idea for product development. Obviously there is a culture part in the company that has to be fostered, right? Because what I see in most companies, like, what are you doing? This is another department, don't come here.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake. We are
Yeah.
talking about creative people, so if they feel that they can put their ideas open, and then I always encourage people to create like Slack channels. We have like newsletter, like certain ways for people to contribute, not even giving their name because sometimes they are afraid, right, to like be judged. So like we create also actions for people to put their ideas in an anonymous way, and then like ideas come from other side, and then an R&D, a product development can come from like a logistics department, which is crazy.
You have 15, I'm going to say 1,500 minds, but you're saying only this group of 5 people has all the ideas. And what you do with that, when you say the entire company is R&D, you says everybody can come and do. So you may have a younger demographic inside of an organization who understands social media better than those people versus an older person who could be in that big role. All that talent is there, but we don't tap into that.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's
So
it.
how can we unleash that? Because when I speak to younger people in jobs, they're just kind of going through the motion. They're trying to find a perfect fit. They're interviewing for jobs. They don't really understand what they're looking for. Talk us through the lens of some of your coaching clients that maybe have tried these kind of ways and all of a sudden it worked, or some
Yeah,
solution.
so
Yeah.
I always say it's about encouragement to ask questions and to bring your ideas to the table. There is two landscapes out there because we know that there are some companies who are really like locked down for this approach, but you have to try, right? And I feel that most people think, like from my coach clients, they're like, oh, but I have this idea. They never gave me space to put it up there. And like, maybe you should bring the space yourself, right? So it's like maybe you should bring like ask a meeting for your manager and go and share your ideas, or on a bigger meeting raise your hand and talk your ideas over, or ask questions as well. Like people feel afraid to feel like ignorant for asking a question, and my dad used to say all the time, ignorance is someone like you might pass by ignorant on that minute, but you'll be ignorant for entire life if you don't answer the question.
Mhm.
And there is nothing better than proactiveness. So just and I always bring like dashboards too, right? Like to showcase your work and your ideas. Bring like graphs that make it visual for people to get attracted on what you were saying. So don't be afraid. Maybe you don't have that space with your manager, he's not asking you your ideas, but you have space on a meeting to raise your hand, to bring your don't be afraid. That's what I always say to people, don't be afraid. So there are two things that can happen, and both things I saw happening in my coaching life. One is your space is creating the company and you start to shine the way you want, and then your ideas are into the table. Sometimes is in the other hand, that the company really don't give you space. And if the company is not giving you space there, then you might change.
Mm-hmm.
Then you might change. There is that old saying, right? It's a very old saying about the bottle of water, right? The same bottle of water can cost $5 in a supermarket, can cost
Yeah.
$30 in a resort. It's
Yeah.
the same bottle of water, right? So if you are not valuing that, maybe you are in the wrong place, right?
Mm.
Maybe you are in the wrong place, because there are companies with companies, there are situations, but you definitely need to raise your voice and
Yeah.
find your space. Don't wait for people to. I never waited for
Yeah.
people ask me about what I think or what I should do or I never waited. So like
Mm.
you can open your own space.
Mm. Very powerful. Um, I find in my work, which is global, I find that lots of times workers are afraid to speak up, are afraid
Yes.
just to share an idea because there's this mindset, and I mentioned this before, that all the thought level, the dynamic and strategic thought level comes from here. How would you coach a room full of younger upstarts in marketing, finance, or whatever it is to find themselves, to find that spark?
To find that spark, that's a great question. I think the spark we need, like again, you don't have to wait for others. It's really about you bring on your own self, right? It's not waiting for others. So what is that you like? You enter in the financial analyst world. People are asking to do something that you are not really sparked about what to do. What would be that one that would spark you? What is that would spark? What would you like to do? Can you apply that in your own company? Another thing that I always say is like create your own learning environment, right? Like people, like companies want you to learn so you can apply in your company. I always being this person on like, I wanted my security, for example, of my salary in the end of the month, right? Like this was up until like last year, that was me. And I found nothing wrong about that because guess what? You can learn and try to improve and try to create new things using others people money too,
Mm.
right? So it's just like just see as an opportunity for you to grow. You are on the social media, you feel that there is a course out there. Try with your company, try to ask them to sponsor that course for you. They don't want to sponsor, guess what? Do it yourself and then try to apply what you are learning in your company so you have the environment to try. So for all those young people, I always say is about you finding what you want and use the environment where you are to try things out. Don't expect your manager to go. I would
Yeah.
love the companies to be there. There are companies out there that
Yeah.
do thinking pro of the employees and go proactively and ask them to do other courses and to improve things. But more than often, that's not what happened, right? They hire a person to do the job ABC. That's what they want. But again, you can create your own space, create the DENF.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in this cubicle, you just do this, but I have other ideas around and some other things that I want to think about. So that brings us to another question. How do you learn? I mean, you're traveling the globe, you've got projects, and I know to deal with that, and you're all over the place. How do you kind of step back and breathe?
Yeah, for me personally, like I actually breathe just a little. I am passionate about learning. So like I am always watching a course, I'm always listening to podcasts, I always like reading what's the new things. And I'm trying to improve myself, right? So for example, so when I merged from Australia and I wanted to become a digital nomad, right? Like I want to have a remote job. And this was before COVID. I find important to mention because after COVID, really, like I saw this wave of like remote work like surging.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I started working remotely even before that, right? So it was something really new. I didn't know about Zoom, Slack,
Yeah.
there is softwares for
See,
tracking. know
Yeah.
timing. I
Yeah.
didn't know the softwares for managing teams that we have out there, like Asana, Mount. I don't know any of those. When I started working remotely, that I saw that I was using those softwares, what I did was what I just mentioned. Like, for example, in the company that I started working for in the past, they used a platform called Monday. So it's pretty straightforward. Is where you control tasks for people. You can say what the level the tasks are. We are working remotely, right? So there is a way for communicating with each other. There are the basic stuff that all the people that came to the company just learn the basic, learn to communicate. That's it. For me, I was like, there is more here. There is more here. I'm gonna do a Monday course. So I did took time, extra work by my own self. I did ask for the sponsorship for my company, which they did sponsor, like to purchase the software course, but it was on my own extra time to learn it, to apply them to my job. And then guess what? All that I learned in the extra time, I put inside my work and make me more free.
Hmm.
Because now I create a system that makes tasks auto-generated and I have more time for myself.
Yeah.
So it's like it's putting the extra there for you to be free later on. So I'm always trying to learn new things.
I'm surprised when I ask senior people. I'm going to
Yes.
skip over the workers that's coming up. How are you learning? What are you reading? What webinars are you listening to? And they give me kind of this blank look. What I say, work is so consuming. When I turn work off, I just want to relax or whatever it is. And so what about future state? What does that look? And they don't want to go there. But I'm thinking with all the innovation, all the disruption that's coming at us 24/7, that
Yes.
mindset may not work long term.
Yes, yes, but then it's about what you want in your life, right? I am a strong believer if you put an extra time and extra work later on in life, you have more freedom
Yeah.
and more space for doing what you want. So when like this person that answers you as in like after my work, I just wanted to relax. Okay, then maybe you might work for your entire life, right? Or you can put some, it's 1 hour. Like what is 1 hour nowadays? If you do 1 hour every day of self-improvement, right? Even sometimes it's even like for your own mindset, for you to learn how to properly relax, because that's what I learned too. Giving space, it brings more innovative ideas to the workforce as well, right? So it's like, is that 1 hour of self-improvement can bring wonders for your life.
Mm. We were talking when we first started from small town to big dreams. And I said what caught me with that, because I came from a small town. And if anyone would have ever told me coming from a town of 7,000 people, three traffic lights, and I would be traveling the world, I would have said, you're just dreaming or you're on something. 'Cause there's no way that's not going to happen, because the trajectory was not there. What
Yes.
inspired you to write that book? I mean, so let me just preface that, because you've lived in all of these countries, growing up from a small town in Brazil, so I understand the title of that. What what provoked you to say, you know what? Let me put all this down on paper, because maybe someone else out there can learn from this.
Yes. So great question. So in fact, it started. So I always say like the road spins, yeah? The road really spins. So imagine this. When I worked in Brazil, this now, I don't know, 15 years ago in this media company, I worked with a guy who really taught me on how to do finances and learn finances.
Okay.
This person, I nowadays bring to work for one of the companies that I coach, and he's the financial team for that company. He was CFO for another Brazilian company, and he invited me. He was like, Lou, my people, like the people that work for this company, is really disengaged. And they are really disengaged, and I wanted to come to motivate them. And I'm like, how can I possibly do that? Because you said, right, you also come from that small town, and I'm sure that you made hard decisions in your life and you work hard to be where you are. I'm 100% sure about that. And we make these decisions, and sometimes we are just going the flow and we don't realize what we achieved, right?
Yeah.
We don't look back and like, wow, it really happened. So I was like, how can I possibly motivate these people? And they were like, just tell your story. And I'm like, will that be enough? And they're like, yeah, just tell your story. And I'm like, cool, okay. So that was my started of a speaker career as well. I just went and I spoke my story. Like, okay, I come from this town. I work in this company. I did that. I went to this company. I grew. And then the feedback that I received from the people were so huge. There were three types of situations there. There was a situation where people actually left their jobs because they were like, okay, I'm not happy here. And that was not super good for my friend. There were people, but most of the people, like this friend of mine told me like how they react in a positive way and they started doing more because they wanted to grow, and then they saw like, opa, let me just like engage in a certain different way. So, and they all wrote me back on how I inspired them.
Oh,
And when I received all those answers, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just write a book telling this story. Is that old saying, right? I can impact one or million. If I impact just one, that would be great. So it was a joke from my dad too. My dad used to joke that I always said that I would write a book. My dad never believed me, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make it for my dad too. So it was a mix between like a desire of mine and then really this feedback that I gained from people when they heard my story.
mm. So my next question is this: so you, but all of the nomadness that you've gone through, if you
Yes.
had to look back on that, what give me an important decision that kind of said, this is what you have to do. Of all of those changes, which one are you most proud of and why?
Yes. Oh, I'm proud of many, to be honest. But
Give us a couple of
there
them.
was there was a specific one. It's not really a decision. I think it was something because I believe there's something I call universe. I believe there's something out there that help us. Some people call it God, energy. I call it universe. So it was not really a decision, but it was a moment that happened to my life. So I decided I was in Australia. A global events director. So I was managing events all around the globe. I was traveling the world, but I was traveling because I needed to do certain events in certain countries, not the countries that I wanted to go. So I decided I will become a digital nomad. So I quit my job in Australia, which was a high paid job. I was gaining my Australian citizenship. For the eyes of others, I was doing something crazy. But I have made this decision. And then I tried to my business. I didn't really work out well. And I was desperate. I was like, oh my God, I cannot come to an office again. And then I found a company, an American company to work for. And I started working for them as a business manager. And the work was doing great. I was working for them for 3 months. They were loving my work. And they invited me to come to US to us to study my career, growth and talk about the company growth. But what happened between these was I was not, it was a startup. The team members were complaining a lot about the people that was now my bosses here. I was talking to clients. My bosses were happy because the clients started talking directly to me. That never happened before. They never trust the
Yeah.
business manager to do that. So I was worried that this job wouldn't flourish the way I wanted. So I went back on my LinkedIn page and I changed my profession to say that I was capable to do what I was doing to that company, right? And I forgot about that. Like the company, the job role continues. All I know is that I arrived in the United States and then they opened my LinkedIn page because we were doing our review for myself, right? And they opened the LinkedIn page and then they turned the computer for me and they were like, what is this? And I'm like, and then I told them the truth. I told them like, look, in 1 month time I was working here, I become worried that I would not have this job because I see clients leaving, I see team members leaving. I just want to prepare myself, but now it's all good. They didn't trust me. They said like, no, I wanted to steal their clients. I wanted to see them team workers. They create a whole thing that was like super untrue. And then that's what I call the universe, like because I was happy with the remote work because I finally find something remote, but I needed to work from 9 to 5. I needed to be online from 9 to 5 European time zone. And I wanted to be free to work anytime that I want.
Yeah.
Because, and that's what's another learning point for me as working remote, that I teach leaders as in to expect the outcome from the team, not the timing that they are putting in.
Mhm.
Because like for me, I work wonders at nighttime. not
Mm,
during the daytime,
yeah.
right? So it's like people were different. So at that time, then I was fired the first time in my life. They're like, you are out. I got desperate. And then was when I found my next company that nowadays I am a partner with, right? So like I have like a percentage of this company, and like I started really small, like just to take care of like inventory, and like in 1 year I was already the COO of the company, bringing many teams. So for me, this pivotal and what I'm really proud about was to find that connection
Yeah.
that allowed me to then work anytime that I wanted, which was like really what I was pursuing, but it was really like something that the universe threw at me, something that was like terrible. I was like, oh my God, I lost the opportunity. What now? And then appeared
Yeah.
what was exactly what I was looking for.
Well, you know what I gathered from that is that, and sometimes you'll see people online that say they just got laid off or whatever. That's I said, look at it as a gift.
That's
You
it.
now have your freedom, so
Yes.
you design the next stage. But again,
Yes.
it comes back to that fear piece because there's so many other things, and everybody has a different context in doing that. But you looked at that as saying, "Oh, okay, so now I'm free to do what I want to do because there's certain things I needed, and I was able to do that."
Yes. That's it. That's it. It seems like it's a bad thing, but it's a gift, as you said. The universe shows you gift that you don't know. So if you
Yeah,
are laid off somewhere, trust me, it's because you have a better opportunity. If you
yeah,
didn't get that job interview that you were looking for, it's because you have an opportunity. Steve Jobs used to say, right? We cannot connect the dots looking forward. We connect dots looking backwards.
exactly.
So like things connect. Things connect.
When I was in the job searching mode, every time I received the rejection letter, I printed it out. I had a file folder of every rejection letter. And some days I'd sit there and I'd read through it. But my thought was, and on the folder it says, I will show them. I will show them. And every time I looked at that, regardless of what I was feeling at that time, something came out that said, okay, let's get back to work. Let's see what we can do beyond that. So you take a negative and you flipping it into a positive.
I love that. I love that. And give me goosebumps to hearing what you're saying, because it's imperative for me to see like where you are now, right? Like coming from a small town yourself, your mindset has a bigger role on it,
Yeah,
right? Definitely like to achieve higher status life, your mindset has really big goals. So you could go to those rejection letter and get depressed about it, or just bring them and bring you more strengthening, right?
yeah,
You can say
yeah,
like, no, I'm stronger now, and I will show them,
yeah.
right? So the mindset has a big piece.
Well, that whole concept came from my daughter
Oh,
because I
wow.
came from my daughter. She was like in maybe eighth grade, and I was in my office, and I told her that I was looking for this particular role. I didn't get it, and she's a kid, and she says, "You know what, Dad?" She said, "It's their loss. Think of it that way. It's their loss." I was like, "Whoa, coaching from an eighth grader." I like,
Wow.
and I said, "Their loss." And then I went back and said, "You know what? Let me just print all this stuff out." So that's where that came from.
That's amazing.
So I tell people when you're looking for these things that you didn't get this one, as you said, the universe is saying that there's something else beyond
Yes.
that. Beyond that.
Yes.
So as you're working with all these clients across the globe, and I know we've gone through COVID, we're coming out of COVID. Do you see a kind of a general theme that leaders are thinking about, or disruptions?
Yeah, so it's really about this remote setup that's surging, right? So people are coming from the in office, 9 to 5, locking times, seeing people doing the work, to now leading remote. And then what I see most happening is really that afraid of like, oh my God, I'm paying this person. Is this person really working or not really working? And I always come to them and say, like, did you bring like clear KPIs on what they need to do?
Yeah,
Because then guess what? If you get clear KPIs and they are bringing what they need, doesn't matter if they did in 10 minutes or they took the whole month.
yeah.
It's your job to give them like what you're expecting from them,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
this for me was a big turning point, because I confess, I was a leader that was like watching timing and making sure that people, you know what I mean? Like I have to learn, and I learned from like I got an example from the CEO that I worked for, because he was really relaxed. He all the time would come to me and say like, "Hey, whatever time you want, take time off." And I was like, "What is this going on?" And then I learned that the more freedom I give to my team, the better results they will bring.
Yeah.
So that's what become like imperative for me to teach people, as in like just know what are the KPIs and expect the outcomes. It's not about how much time they're putting in; it's about the results that they are bringing.
Yeah. This entire concept, and this is what I say lots of, and I'm saying this I want to say this in the proper context. Um, COVID was a gift for organizations. Now, I know a lot of lives were disrupted, but it was a gift for organizations to say, rethink everything again, start
Yes,
over, rethink
yes,
everything. Strategy is out of the window, work model is out of the window, start from scratch. But what I gather with leaders is that they are so connected to the old way of doing things that they can't let go because they say, I don't know whether you're working if you're just home. I said, well, how do you know they're working? Is it just because they were in front of you? They could have been doing 1,001 different things. But you're saying visually, I can see them there, and I'm
yes.
making an assumption that they're working.
But you know what's fun? For me was really funny to watch is because again I started working remotely before COVID, and I engage in a lot of remote workers around the globe. Like we have our own meetups and conferences and so on. And normally was Americans. So the companies were allowed people
Yeah,
work remotely before was Americans. So they were
yeah,
really upfront on that. Then COVID happened, and then I was going to co-livings and co-working spaces, and I start seeing Europeans, and I'm like, do you work remotely? They are like, oh, they told me to work from home. And then I was thinking, if I can work from home, I can work from Spain or from Thailand, right? So they were working remotely. And then suddenly COVID stops and they want to back. They're like, oh, I was working in this company, but my boss asked me to go back to the office. I'm not going back to the office,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
know? So like the ones that didn't accept, they quit and go find some companies that does accept. And guess what? The leaders that doesn't accept this change will lose good workers, because there is the actually I feel like the best workers are the one who manage their own time,
exactly.
right? And yeah. So like they really have to open their minds, otherwise they will lose. They will lose great talents out there.
Hmm. Hmm. Flexibility is going to be the cornerstone of the new workforce.
Yes.
However, so I'm not saying that flexibility is 5 days working from home, 3 days working from home, but that's something you've got to work out with your people in a team or from an organizational perspective. But
Yes.
again, my thought is that it's all anchored into this. I want to go back to where it was because that was a comfort zone. Well, that's over with, and get
Yes.
used to it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
try and move, forward. Um, you persevered. I mean, you've lived multiple lives,
Multiple lives in one. And I'm
multiple
still
lives.
reinventing. I'm still reinventing myself. I
Still
still
with,
reinvent myself. Life is for us to reinvent ourselves. And I always say to people, like again, like from it comes back to what we start our conversation. Don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid that you maybe you did like to do a work that you were doing before and you don't feel your heart pumping anymore. It's okay.
yeah,
It's okay to change. Like I worked with frying potatoes to being a waitress to organizing events to managing factory to leading a like e-commerce company to being a speaker now. It's like
wow,
completely different professionals, right?
yeah.
So like it's okay to change. It's okay to change. And guess what? If it doesn't work out, just go back, right? There are alternatives to go back. That's it.
I love the anchor with frying potatoes because when you think of the parlance of a career, that's probably a rock bottom. So I
Yes.
mean, if you can rise from frying, as I say, frying fries
Yes. Frying
to
fries. That's
a
it.
global leader,
Yes.
that's a story within itself.
Yes. That's it.
So one of the key reasons that we put together this show, and it's been called a master class on leadership, is because we wanted to bring in people like yourselves to talk through their careers. And we built up a strong following across the globe. So the people that are watching, like us on YouTube or whatever social media, make comments on it. And I want to, as we begin to close out, I want to pay homage to a few of our listeners here that's coming through LinkedIn here, through YouTube. Jim Moy, who's an attorney out of Washington, D.C., who was a prior guest here on the show. and Peter Piccinini, who listens to us every Friday. It's kind of like the starting of the day from their side. And so that was our mission behind that. So do you have any closing thoughts on that you'd like to leave with the audience?
The sooner you make a decision, the sooner the change will come. The sooner you make a decision, the sooner the change will come.
Okay. As I mentioned to you, I had a coaching client I was working with the other day, and I told her, I said, don't tell me this same story again, because you told me this 3 years ago and you're still in design mode. You gotta move out of design mode and take it beyond there. So that was my thought to that. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I know you're traveling. Where do you go from here? Once you leave Italy, where are you headed?
Yes, I'm going to Spain, to Tarifa. To Spain, yes. I want to do, there is a town called Tarifa, close to Malaga, that do kite surfing. And I want to try to kite surfing. Let's try a new sport in my life too. So why not? So I'm going to there.
Okay. Thank you so much for being a guest. And we're going to close that. Now just hang on for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.